Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we are unpacking a framework that has completely captivated and fiercely divided readers for nearly 3 decades. We're looking at a brilliant descriptive overview by Professor Jonathan Acuna Solano, which breaks down the core claims of Graham Hancock's heavily debated 1995 book Fingerprints of the Gods. Now, our goal here isn't to prove or disprove these claims, right? Instead, we're going to impartially map out the exact architecture of Hancock's fascinating argument. We want to see how all the different pieces of this massive historical puzzle fit together according to this specific alternative history text.
Okay, let's dive right into this, with a quote from our source author. He writes, "Ever since I first encountered Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods, I found myself wondering why a single book could generate such passionate reactions among readers. And you know, it's a really fantastic point. Why does this specific book still cause such intense debate? Some people view it as this groundbreaking reinterpretation of human origins, while others see it as purely speculative. But before taking any kind of stance, there's immense value in understanding exactly what the book proposes. What makes this alternative history so magnetic that we are literally still talking about it today?"
Well, to answer that, we are going to logically unpack Hancock's complex framework pillar by pillar. We'll start with the Lost Ice Age civilization, then examine maps and megalithic architecture before looking up at astronomy in the skies. From there, we'll decode myths and civilizing heroes, explore the dramatic global cataclysm, and finally, look at how all this requires reassessing the ancient timeline.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the Lost Ice Age civilization, a forgotten chapter.
At the very core of Hancock's narrative is a massive, paradigm-shifting claim that humanity's past is missing an entire chapter. He argues that a highly advanced, technologically sophisticated civilization flourished well over 12,000 years ago. Now, this relies heavily on a concept called hyperdiffusionism. This is the theory that major cultural innovations didn't just pop up randomly and independently all over the place, but actually originated from one single advanced source and then spread globally. It's like a giant ripple effect. Hancock builds on the foundations of earlier speculative writers, guys like Ignatius Donnelly and Charles Hapgood. But the big takeaway here is how this fundamentally changes the story of human ingenuity. In this formulation, this lost civilization wasn't just a basic precursor to us. Hancock claims it possessed advanced knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering that was way beyond what we typically attribute to Ice Age hunter-gatherers.
Moving right along to Section 2, maps and megalithic architecture, anomalies in stone and paper.
So Hancock points to early modern maps that show an unexpected, seemingly impossible level of accuracy. The most famous example he uses is the Piri Reis map. According to his framework, this map suggests prehistoric geographical knowledge. Incredibly, he argues it potentially depicts an ice-free Antarctica. I mean, just think about that for a second. A map charting an ice-free landmass centuries before the known age of exploration. For Hancock, accurate global mapping requires technological capabilities that simply didn't exist in the ancient societies we know about. He argues that maps like the Piri Reis essentially preserve fragmented knowledge, inherited and passed down from that older, highly capable Ice Age civilization.
And this theory builds even further when he applies it to global architecture. Take Egypt, for example. Hancock argues the Great Sphinx and pyramids encode advanced astronomical knowledge and are actually much older than conventionally assumed. Then over in Bolivia, Tiwanaku is presented as evidence of an advanced civilization predating known Andean cultures. And in Mesoamerica, sites like Teotihuacan and Chichen Itza are highlighted for their geometric planning and astronomical alignments. Hancock's interpretive strategy here is remarkably consistent across continents. He views this incredible architectural precision not as independent local development, but absolutely as inherited knowledge from that single, lost global source.
Which brings us to Section 3, Astronomy in the Skies, Messages in the Stars.
Hancock proposes that these ancient monuments aren't just aligned with basic solar events, like a simple sunrise. He says they deliberately encode long-term astronomical cycles, specifically the precession of the equinoxes. Now, the crucial point here is absolutely fascinating. Tracking a cycle that takes thousands of years to complete strongly implies the existence of a stable, advanced culture capable of extended observation over millennia. Drawing on researchers like Robert Bauval, who proposed correlations between the Giza pyramids and Orion's belt, Hancock argues that these astronomical alignments are essentially messages left in stone by an older, forgotten culture.
Next up, Section 4, Myths and Civilizing Heroes, History Encoded in Stories.
Hancock doesn't view global mythology as mere fiction or symbolic poetry. He actually interprets them as literal historical memory. Consider the universal flood myths. We're talking about stories of catastrophic destruction shared across biblical, Hindu, Greek, and Mesoamerican traditions. And emerging from these floodwaters are what he calls the civilizing heroes. These are towering figures like Quetzalcoatl in Mesoamerica, Viracocha in the Andes, or Thoth in Egypt. Hancock views these figures as actual, literal survivors of the lost civilization. In his theory, after the global flood, these survivors dispersed and transmitted critical knowledge, things like agriculture and writing, to scattered human populations who were just trying to rebuild.
So, if this advanced civilization existed, what exactly happened to it? That brings us to Section 5, the global cataclysm, the end of the Ice Age.
Borrowing from the geological theories of Charles Hapgood, Hancock proposes a terrifyingly rapid and catastrophic global event. He argues that a sudden shift in Earth's crust caused massive climate upheavals. This crustal displacement, he suggests, led to surging sea levels, devastating earthquakes, and a climate shock that effectively wiped out the advanced civilization around 10,450 BCE. This cataclysm marks the violent transition from a technologically sophisticated global culture down to the more localized, fragmented societies we actually see in the standard archaeological record, leaving only those few surviving sages to pass on the fragments of what was lost.
And finally, Section 6, reassessing the ancient timeline, a new chronology.
According to Hancock's alternative framework, this advanced civilization emerges well before 20,000 BCE. Fast forward to 10,500 BCE, the astronomical age of Leo, and Hancock suggests the Great Sphinx is constructed. Then, boom, around 9600 BCE, the global cataclysm strikes, utterly destroying the civilization. Interestingly, this timeline actually aligns with the construction of Göbekli Tepe, which Hancock's readers view as totally compatible with unexpectedly sophisticated prehistoric societies. It's only much later, around 3100 BCE, that dynastic Egypt begins, and in this view, they are inheriting their knowledge rather than inventing it from scratch.
Now, this alternative chronology causes intense friction with established science, and you can definitely see why this matters so much. Accepting these dates requires completely tearing up modern history textbooks. I mean, the contrast is stark. While the accepted scholarly date for the Great Sphinx is roughly 2500 BCE, Hancock pushes it back a staggering 8,000 years to 10,500 BCE. Tiwanaku's principal occupation is dated to 500 to 1000 CE by archaeologists, but Hancock argues it's thousands of years older. Essentially, Hancock extends these timelines backward to create a temporal framework where his global, hyper-diffuse lost civilization actually becomes a plausible reality.
As Jonathan Acuna Solano's overview makes perfectly clear, Fingerprints of the Gods is a sweeping, interdisciplinary argument that really challenges us to rethink the boundaries of historical knowledge. Hancock blends cartography, geology, astronomy, and mythology into this massive, unified theory of human origins. Whether you view this as brilliant investigative reporting or highly imaginative speculation, its cultural impact is undeniable. It forces us to ask a profound and lingering question. Does the deep past truly hold a forgotten, technologically advanced chapter of human history that was wiped away by cataclysm? Or are we simply misinterpreting the brilliant, natural, and independent evolution of our ancestors? It's a deeply fascinating mystery, and understanding the framework behind it is the very first step in exploring the origins of humanity. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the past.